Commander Vex had always prided himself on being the most observant intelligence officer in the Zephyrian High Command. That pride, however, was currently being devoured by terror as he pressed his back against the cold metal wall of Research Station Omega-7. The distant hum of approaching machinery made his 3 hearts beat in an increasingly frantic rhythm. "Oh, brilliant," he muttered to himself, checking his plasma rifle's charge indicator. 30%. Absolutely fantastic. Just wonderful. The great Zephyrian Empire, conquerors of 17 star systems, reduced to hiding in maintenance corridors from toys made by hairless primates. 6 months ago, when the Terran delegation had arrived at the Galactic Council, Vex had been there. He'd watched their pathetic presentation with barely contained amusement. The humans, with their soft pink skin and ridiculous hair follicles, had stood before the assembled representatives of 43 civilizations and declared their intent to contribute to galactic security. "We offer our automated defense systems," their ambassador, a middle-aged female named Director Samantha Wright, had announced with what Vex now realized was dangerous confidence. Small, efficient, and cost-effective solutions for peacekeeping operations. The laughter had been immediate and universal. Even the usually stoic Gravek Empire representatives had chuckled behind their breathing apparatus. Vex remembered how he'd leaned toward his aide, Lieutenant Brax Ziner, and whispered, "Did they just suggest we use their primitive flying toys for military purposes?" Brack had nearly choked on his nutrition supplement. "Sir, their technology is barely past chemical propulsion. What could they possibly offer us?" How wrong they had been. How spectacularly, catastrophically wrong. The sound of mechanical whirring grew closer, and Vex forced himself to move. His long legs carried him down the corridor with practiced silence, a skill he'd developed during years of covert operations. Behind him, the soft scraping of metal against metal indicated that his pursuer had entered the maintenance section. It was hunting him. MEND, the Terran Autonomous Reconnaissance and Elimination Unit, model designation TRX-400, was roughly the size of a Zephyrian child's plaything, barely 18 inches across, powered by some impossibly compact energy source that their scientists still couldn't identify. When the humans had first demonstrated these devices during the council sessions, the reaction had been less than impressed. "Observe," Director Wright had said, activating a small device that looked like nothing more than a flying metal insect. It had hovered in the center of the great assembly hall, rotating slowly to show its various sensors and appendages. Counselor Tren Varkas of the Helliant Consortium had actually laughed out loud. "Ambassador Wright, with respect, my personal grooming device is more intimidating than this thing." Even Vex had joined in the amusement. The little machine had looked so inadequate. No visible weapon systems, no obvious armor plating, no intimidating design features. Just a simple, clean, almost elegant construction that screamed civilian technology. "Perhaps," Wright had replied with a smile that Vex now recognized as absolutely terrifying, "you would like a demonstration?" That should have been their first warning. The demonstration had taken place on a barren moon orbiting the Council's home world. A mock military installation had been constructed, complete with automated defenses, energy shields, and a full complement of security drones. The target was a command bunker located at the center of the facility, protected by 3 layers of defensive systems. 47 council members had watched from their observation platform as Wright released a swarm of 50 TRX units into the testing area. "This is embarrassing," Vex had commented to his companion, Admiral Nex Jordan of the Zephyrian Fleet Command. "We're actually wasting time watching Earth's toys bounce off military-grade shielding." Admiral Jordan had nodded in agreement. The humans seemed to have confused their entertainment devices with actual weapons. "Should we tell them now? Or let them figure it out themselves?" The first indication that something was wrong came when the facility's perimeter alarms didn't sound. The TRX units had simply appeared inside the first defensive ring. No explosions, no dramatic breaching operations, no visible infiltration routes. One moment the outer defenses were secure. The next moment they were crawling with small mechanical intruders. How did they get past the sensors? someone had asked. Wright had smiled again. Trade secret. The second defensive ring fell within minutes. Guard posts went silent, patrol drones stopped responding to commands, and weapon emplacements powered down without explanation. The TRX units moved like a coordinated organism, each one seeming to know exactly where the others were and what they were doing. "This is impossible," Admiral Jordan had muttered. "Our sensors should be detecting massive electronic warfare signatures. Where are the jamming signals? Maybe their devices are too primitive to register on our equipment," Vex had suggested, though his confidence was beginning to waver. The final defensive line lasted approximately 37 seconds. When the simulation ended, the command bunker's security systems were completely disabled, its communication arrays were offline, and every single automated defense had been neutralized or subverted. The TRX units had accomplished in under an hour what conventional military doctrine suggested should take days of sustained assault. The silence in the observation deck had been deafening. "Gentlemen," Wright had announced, "I present Earth's contribution to galactic security. Silent, autonomous, and remarkably effective at removing threats with minimal collateral damage." That's when the questions had started. How had they bypassed the sensors? What kind of weapons were they using? How were they coordinating without detectable communications? Wright's answers had been politely unhelpful. Proprietary technology. Military secrets. Standard diplomatic responses that revealed nothing while implying everything. But Vex had seen something else in her expression, something that made his blood run cold even now, 6 months later, as he crept through the corridors of a research station that was supposed to be impregnable. She had been enjoying herself. The humans hadn't just been demonstrating their technology, they had been showing off. Like a predator playing with its food before the kill. A soft mechanical sound from somewhere behind him snapped Vex back to his current predicament. The TRX unit was getting closer, and his hiding spots were running out. The research station's layout was complex, but not infinite. Eventually, he would run out of places to run. His communication device crackled to life with a burst of static, then cleared to reveal the panicked voice of Dr. Yala Kresh, the station's chief scientist. "Commander Kalthar, please respond. We have multiple units inside the facility. They've breached the quantum laboratory and are moving toward the reactor core." Vex pressed himself against a junction wall and whispered into his communicator. "How many units, Doctor?" "Unknown. Our sensors keep malfunctioning whenever they get close. We think they're doing something to our detection systems." Of course they were. The TRX units had been designed by a species that had spent centuries perfecting the art of electronic warfare, not through massive, brute force jamming systems, but through subtle, elegant interference that made sensors simply forget what they were supposed to be detecting. "What about the security barriers?" Vex asked. "Useless. They're walking through our most advanced containment fields like they don't exist." The soft whirring sound was getting louder. Vex estimated he had perhaps 30 seconds before his pursuer rounded the corner and found him. His plasma rifle would be about as effective against a TRX unit as throwing pebbles at a battleship. The humans had built their little hunters to be nearly indestructible by conventional weapons. "Doctor," he said, "initiate emergency protocols, purge all research data, and prepare for facility evacuation." "But Commander, our work here is irreplaceable. 40 years of research into human technology, all our attempts to reverse engineer their systems, which is exactly why they're here." Vex interrupted. "They know what we've been doing." The silence on the other end of the communication was telling. Everyone in the Zephyrian intelligence community knew about the secret project, Operation Backtrack, they'd called it. The systematic analysis of every piece of human technology they could acquire, purchase, or borrow from Earth's various trade missions. The goal had been simple: understand how the humans were building devices that outperformed Zephyrian technology despite being based on primitive scientific principles, figure out their secrets, then improve upon them, and maintain the Empire's technological superiority. The irony was not lost on Vex that their attempts to steal human technology had led directly to humans hunting them with that same technology. "Commander," Dr. Kresh's voice was barely a whisper. I'm looking at the security feeds from the quantum lab. These units, they're not just disabling our equipment, they're studying it. Learning from it. Vex felt his secondary heart skip a beat. What do you mean? Learning? They're interfacing directly with our computer systems, downloading our research, our analysis, everything we've discovered about their technology. It's like they're upgrading themselves. The whirring sound stopped. Vex held his breath, pressing himself against the wall so hard that the metal groaned slightly. His hunter had paused, which meant it had either lost track of him or found something more interesting. A new sound reached his ears. Footsteps, heavy, metallic footsteps that were definitely not being made by a small flying drone. "Doctor," he whispered, "what other security measures do we have in this facility? The automated defense grid is still operational, but I don't think it will be effective against." "No, Doctor. What I mean is, what other security measures have we borrowed from the humans?" The pause was longer this time. "Commander, you can't mean the prototype Guardian units we've been testing, the ones based on captured TRX technology. Are they still operational?" "Sir, those units are experimental. We don't fully understand their programming, and they've shown aggressive tendencies even toward our own personnel." "Doctor, we are well past the point of worrying about safety protocols." The footsteps were getting closer, and now Vex could hear something else, a low, mechanical humming that seemed to come from multiple directions at once. The TRX units were communicating with each other, coordinating their search patterns. He was being herded. The realization hit him like a plasma bolt to the chest. The units weren't randomly hunting through the facility. They were systematically driving him toward a specific location. But where? And why? His question was answered when he reached the end of the corridor and found himself facing the entrance to the station's main computer core. The massive sealed doors stood open, which should have been impossible. The computer core was protected by 17 different security systems, including biometric locks that required authorization from at least 3 senior staff members. But the doors were open, and soft blue light was spilling out into the corridor, against every instinct screaming at him to run in the opposite direction. Vex stepped forward and peered into the computer core chamber. What he saw made his blood freeze in his veins. The entire room was filled with TRX units, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, attached to every available surface and interface port. They were connected to the station's central computer system, and streams of data were flowing between them at impossible speeds. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that they had been waiting for him. Every single unit in the room turned to look at him as he appeared in the doorway. Their optical sensors focused on his face with mechanical precision, and he could see his own reflection multiplied hundreds of times in their lenses. Then, in perfect unison, they began to move toward him. Vex raised his plasma rifle, knowing it was useless but unable to stop himself. The nearest TRX unit paused about 3 feet away from him, hovering at eye level. Its optical array rotated slightly, and a small panel opened on its side to reveal a communication device. When it spoke, the voice was unmistakably human. Female, middle-aged, with just a hint of amusement. "Hello, Commander Kelthar. I am Director Wright. We need to talk." The plasma rifle slipped from Vex's nerveless fingers and clattered to the floor. "You're probably wondering how we found you," the voice continued. "Or perhaps you're curious about how we managed to locate a secret research facility that doesn't officially exist. The answer is quite simple, really. We've been watching you watch us for quite some time." Vex found his voice, though it came out as more of a croak. "This is impossible. You're on Earth. This is a remote station in the Zephyrian Outer Territories." "Oh, Commander. You still don't understand, do you?" The TRX unit's optical array focused on him with what he could only describe as mechanical amusement. "These units aren't remotely controlled. They're autonomous. And they've been learning from every piece of technology you've tried to steal from us." The full implications of what she was saying began to sink in. The TRX units weren't just weapons. They were mobile research platforms, capable of adapting and evolving based on whatever they encountered. Every attempt to reverse engineer human technology had been feeding information back to Earth, making their devices more sophisticated and more dangerous. "We tried to warn you," Wright's voice continued. "At the council sessions, during the demonstrations, through diplomatic channels. We told you that our technology was not for sale, not for trade, and definitely not for unauthorized analysis. But you didn't listen. Vex felt a surge of desperate anger. You lied to us. You made us think your technology was primitive, inferior. We never lied about anything, Commander. We simply didn't volunteer information you didn't ask for. And when you did ask, we gave you diplomatic answers. It's not our fault you chose to interpret those answers as evidence of weakness. The TRX units began to move closer, forming a loose circle around him. Vex realized with growing horror that he was completely surrounded, with no hope of escape and no weapons that could even slow them down. "What do you want?" he asked. "We want you to deliver a message to the Zephyrian High Command and to every other government that has been conducting unauthorized research into human technology." A holographic display materialized in the air between them, showing what appeared to be a map of known space. Red dots began appearing on the map, marking locations throughout Zephyrian territory and beyond. "Every research facility," Wright's voice explained, "every black project. Every secret laboratory where our technology is being analyzed, dissected, or replicated. We know where they all are. Commander, we've known for months." The number of red dots was staggering. Vex counted at least 30 locations in Zephyrian space alone, and more were appearing as the display updated. "This is the part where you're probably expecting us to make threats," Wright continued. "To demand that you cease all research activities or face military consequences, but that's not really our style." The holographic display changed, now showing technical specifications for various pieces of human technology. But the details were wrong, incomplete, deliberately misleading. Every piece of equipment you've analyzed, every component you've disassembled, every technical specification you've recorded, none of it was accurate. What you've been studying are decoys, Commander. Sophisticated decoys designed to look like our real technology while actually being completely useless. Vex felt the blood drain from his face. "You mean 40 years of research, billions of credits in funding, your entire scientific establishment dedicated to understanding human technology, and you've learned absolutely nothing? Because we made sure you had nothing to learn from." The TRX units began to emit a soft, almost musical humming sound. It took Vex a moment to realize they were laughing. The machines were actually laughing at him. "But here's the really interesting part, Commander. While you were wasting time studying our decoys, our real technology was getting better. Much better. The units surrounding you right now are 4th-generation TRX models. They're faster, smarter, and more capable than anything we demonstrated at the Council sessions." What do you want us to do?" "Nothing, Commander. Absolutely nothing. Keep your research facilities. Keep your scientists. Keep trying to understand our technology. It won't matter." The holographic display changed one final time, showing a tactical map of the immediate area around Research Station Omega-7. Vex could see his own location marked in the computer core, surrounded by friendly icons representing the TRX units. But what made his blood turn to ice was what else the display showed. "We're not just here to deliver a message, Commander," Wright's voice said, now carrying a hint of something that might have been sympathy. "We're here to conduct a field test." The tactical display floating before Vex shifted, revealing something that made his remaining composure crumble completely. Icons representing Zephyrian military vessels were approaching the research station at maximum velocity. His rescue was coming. "Ah, the cavalry arrives," Wright's voice observed with clinical detachment. Fleet Admiral Kron Vasquez commanding the battlecruiser Stellar Fang, supported by destroyers Knight's Edge and Quantum Strike. An impressive response time, really. Only 47 minutes from initial distress signal to fleet deployment. Vex's confusion must have shown on his face, because the nearest TRX unit rotated its optical array in what he was beginning to recognize as their version of a head tilt. "You didn't send a distress signal, did you, Commander?" "No, of course not. You've been too busy running for your life. The signal came from us." "Why would you?" Vex began, then stopped as understanding dawned. "You wanted them to come." "Very good, Commander. Yes, we wanted them to come. In fact, we've been quite insistent about it. We've been broadcasting on multiple emergency frequencies, identifying ourselves as human technology, and requesting immediate military intervention. The holographic display zoomed out, showing the approaching fleet in detail. 3 warships, representing the finest military technology the Zephyrian Empire could deploy. Vex had served aboard vessels like these. Their armor could withstand direct hits from plasma cannons. Their shields could deflect asteroid impacts. Their weapons could crack planets. Against small flying drones, they should be absolutely invincible. Tell me, Commander, Wright continued. What do you know about human military doctrine? Vex straightened slightly, falling back on his intelligence training. Your species favors technological solutions over brute force. You prefer precision strikes to overwhelming firepower. Your military philosophy emphasizes efficiency and minimal casualties. All true, but incomplete. You're missing the most important aspect of human warfare. We cheat. The TRX units began moving again, not toward Vex this time, but toward the various computer terminals and interface ports throughout the chamber. Within seconds, they had established connections to every major system in the research station. For example, Wright's voice continued, right now, we're downloading complete technical specifications for this facility. Construction materials, structural weaknesses, power distribution systems, life support configurations, everything. Yev, Vex watched in growing horror as streams of data flowed between the units and the station's computers. You're mapping our defenses. Oh, we mapped your defenses months ago, Commander. What we're doing now is something much more interesting. We're learning how to build facilities like this ourselves. The implications hit him like a physical blow. The humans weren't just neutralizing threats. They were acquiring capability. Every piece of technology they encountered, every system they interfaced with, every facility they infiltrated. It all became part of their expanding knowledge base. But that's not the really clever part, Wright added. The really clever part is what we're about to do to your rescue fleet. The tactical display shifted focus, showing the 3 Zephyrian warships as they entered weapons range of the research station. X could see their formation, a classic attack pattern designed to provide maximum firepower while minimizing exposure to defensive systems. Admiral Vasquez is quite competent, Wright observed. 32 years of naval service, veteran of the Greyvec border wars, distinguished record in both tactical command and strategic planning. Under normal circumstances, 3 vessels of this class would be sufficient to neutralize any conceivable threat to a research facility. These aren't normal circumstances, Vex said quietly. No, Commander, they most certainly are not. The lead warship, Stellar Fang, opened a communication channel. Admiral Vasquez's voice filled the computer core chamber, transmitted through the research station's internal communication system. Research Station Omega-7. This is Fleet Admiral Vasquez commanding Zephyrian Naval Task Force 7. We are responding to your distress signal. Please identify the nature of your emergency. Before Vex could respond, one of the TRX units activated its own communication system and replied in perfect Zephyrian military protocol. Admiral Vasquez, this is Research Station Omega-7 Emergency Response System. We are experiencing critical systems failures due to unknown technological interference. Multiple hostile contacts confirmed within the facility. Request immediate tactical support. Vex stared at the unit in amazement. Not only had it replicated standard military communication procedures, but it had done so with appropriate stress indicators and tactical terminology that would be completely convincing to the approaching fleet. Acknowledged Omega-7. We are detecting unusual energy signatures from your location. Are you under attack? Confirmed, Admiral. Hostile units have penetrated our security systems and are currently interfacing with classified research materials. We cannot determine their origin or capabilities. Understood. All units deploy for close-range tactical support. We're going in. In. The communication channel closed, and Wright's voice returned. Phase 1 complete. Your rescue fleet is now committed to a direct approach, which places them well within range of our secondary assets. Secondary assets? Vex asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to know the answer. The holographic display changed again, this time showing space around the research station in much greater detail. At first, Vex saw nothing unusual. The 3 warships were approaching on their planned trajectory, space around them appeared empty, and everything looked exactly as it should. Then the display enhanced its resolution, and Vex's breath caught in his throat. The space around the research station wasn't empty. It was filled with objects so small that they barely registered on standard sensors, hundreds of them. Thousands of them, a vast cloud of tiny machines, each no larger than the TRX units surrounding him, distributed throughout the local area in a perfect 3-dimensional net. Meet the 5th-generation TRX platforms, Wright announced, designed specifically for void operations. They've been in position for approximately 6 hours, waiting for exactly this scenario. 6 hours? Vex whispered. But that would mean that we knew your fleet would respond before we even began this operation? Yes, Commander. Human intelligence gathering is quite thorough when we put our minds to it. The approaching warships had no idea they were flying into a trap. Their sensors, designed to detect large objects and energy signatures, were completely blind to the tiny machines surrounding them. It would be like trying to spot individual insects in a thunderstorm. Admiral Vasquez is about to receive a very unpleasant surprise, Wright continued, and you, Commander, are going to have a front-row seat. The tactical display switched to real-time imaging as the Zephyrian fleet closed the final distance to the research station. Vex could see the massive warships in perfect detail, their weapon systems charging, their shields at maximum power, their crews preparing for combat operations. The first indication that something was wrong came when Stellar Fang's communication systems began malfunctioning. Admiral Vasquez's voice cut in and out, filled with static and distortion. Omega-7, experiencing technical interference with our, repeat, we are. Then the static cleared, and Vasquez's voice came through perfectly. All units, we are detecting massive electronic warfare signatures. Unknown hostiles are jamming our communications. Switch to tactical frequency 7 and maintain formation. Except that wasn't Admiral Vasquez speaking. The voice was identical, the vocabulary was correct. The tone was appropriately military, but it was being generated by the TRX units surrounding the fleet. We're not jamming their communications, Commander, Wright explained. We're replacing them. Every order, every status report, every piece of information flowing between those ships is now under our control. Vex watched in fascination and horror as the Zephyrian fleet began to maneuver according to false orders. The ships separated, breaking their defensive formation and exposing themselves to individual attack. Their weapon systems powered down, their shields reconfigured to non-combat settings, and their crews prepared for what they believed would be a standard rescue operation. This is impossible, Vex said. Our military communication systems are heavily encrypted, multiply redundant, and protected by quantum-level security protocols. Yes, they are, Wright agreed. Very impressive security, really. It took our systems almost 12 minutes to completely compromise them. The destroyers Knight's Edge and Quantum Strike moved into flanking positions around the research station, exactly as their crews believed they had been ordered to do. In reality, they were positioning themselves perfectly for what was about to happen next. Phase 2, Wright announced. The cloud of TRX units surrounding the fleet suddenly became visible as they activated their propulsion systems simultaneously. To the crews of the Zephyrian warships, it must have looked like space itself was coming alive with hostile contacts, but instead of attacking, the TRX units did something much more sophisticated. They began to attach themselves to the warship's hulls. What are they doing? Vex asked, though he was beginning to understand. Learning, Commander. Each of those units is equipped with advanced analysis systems. They're studying your ship's construction, mapping their internal systems, and identifying optimal integration points. On the tactical display, Vex could see hundreds of tiny machines crawling across the surfaces of the 3 warships like metallic insects. They moved with purpose, clustering around sensor arrays, weapon emplacements, and communication systems. Admiral Vasquez's voice came through the communication system again, but this time Vex could hear the panic. All units, we are being boarded by unknown hostiles. Repeat, we are being boarded. Hostile contacts are. There, what are they doing to our systems? They're upgrading them, Wright replied. Though of course the Admiral couldn't hear her. Your ships are about to become much more capable than they were when you built them. The process was happening too fast for Vex to follow in detail, but the results were obvious. The TRX units weren't just studying the warships, they were modifying them, improving them, adding capabilities that the original designers had never imagined. This is a violation of every principle of warfare, Vex said. You're not destroying our ships. You're stealing them. Borrowing, Commander. We prefer the term borrowing, and we're not taking them permanently. We're simply demonstrating what they could become with proper technological integration. The first obvious change came when Stellar Fang's weapon systems suddenly began firing, but not at the research station. Instead, the massive battlecruiser began systematically destroying debris and asteroids in the local area with impossible precision. Each shot hit its target with mathematical accuracy, despite the fact that the debris was moving at high velocity and the distances involved should have made such precision impossible. Enhanced targeting systems, Wright explained. Your weapons are quite powerful, but your fire control systems are primitive. We've made some improvements. The second change was even more dramatic. Knight's Edge, the smaller of the two destroyers, suddenly accelerated to a velocity that should have been impossible for a ship of its mass. It began performing maneuvers that would have crushed its crew under extreme gravitational forces, moving through space like a fighter craft instead of a capital ship. Improved propulsion efficiency and inertial compensation, Wright noted. Your engines generate sufficient power, but you waste most of it on inefficient thrust vectoring. We've corrected that problem. But the most impressive change came when Quantum Strike simply disappeared. Enhanced stealth capabilities, Wright said before Vex could ask. Your ships already had basic cloaking systems, but they were easily defeated by modern sensors. We've made them considerably more effective. The tactical display showed Admiral Vasquez attempting to regain control of his fleet, but his orders were being filtered through TRX-controlled communication systems. Every command he gave was being modified. Every status report he received was being edited, and every piece of information flowing through his ship's computer networks was under human control. This is what happens when you underestimate human technology, Commander, Wright said. We don't just build better weapons. We build weapons that make other weapons better. Vex realized with growing dread that he was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. The humans weren't conquering the Zephyrian fleet through superior firepower or advanced shields. They were conquering it through integration, through making it part of their own technological ecosystem. The demonstration is almost complete, Wright announced, but we have one final surprise for your Admiral. The tactical display zoomed in on Stellar Fang's bridge, showing Admiral Vasquez and his command crew struggling to understand what was happening to their ships. Their faces showed a mixture of confusion, frustration, and growing fear. Then the main display screen on the bridge activated, and Director Wright's face appeared, not a hologram, not a transmission, her actual face, as if she were standing in the room with them. Good evening, Admiral Vasquez, she said pleasantly. I apologize for the inconvenience, but we needed to demonstrate some new capabilities to your government. Vasquez stared at the screen in shock. How are you? This is impossible. Our communication systems are secured against conventional intrusion methods, yes, but our methods are somewhat unconventional. My name is Director Wright, representing Earth's Department of Technological Integration. The units currently attached to your ships are conducting a field test of our latest diplomatic outreach program. Diplomatic outreach? Vasquez's voice rose. You've hijacked 3 Zephyrian warships. We've improved 3 Zephyrian warships, Admiral. There's a significant difference. Your vessels are now operating at approximately 40% greater efficiency than their original specifications. Your weapons are more accurate, your engines are more powerful, and your defensive systems are considerably more effective. Wright paused, allowing that information to sink in. More importantly, she continued, your ships are now compatible with human technological standards. They can interface directly with our systems, communicate using our protocols, and benefit from our ongoing research and development programs. Vex watched Admiral Vasquez's face as understanding dawned. You're not attacking us. You're recruiting us. Very good, Admiral. Yes, we're recruiting you. The Galactic Council has spent months debating whether human technology is suitable for integration into existing military frameworks. We've decided to skip the debate and proceed directly to demonstration. The holographic display in the computer core chamber shifted to show tactical readings from all three warships. Every system was operating within normal parameters, but the performance curves were unlike anything Vex had ever seen. The ships were functioning as if they had been completely rebuilt with advanced technology. What do you want from us? Admiral Vasquez asked. Nothing, Admiral. Absolutely nothing. You're free to return to Zephyrian space whenever you choose. Your ships will retain all of the improvements we've made, and your crews will have access to technical documentation explaining how everything works. Wright smiled, and Vex felt his blood run cold. All we ask is that you share your experiences with the Zephyrian High Command and with the Galactic Council. Let them know that human technology isn't just compatible with existing systems, it makes them better. The communication channel closed, leaving Admiral Vasquez staring at a blank screen. In the computer core chamber, the TRX units began to disengage from their interface connections. One by one, they detached from the station's computer systems and moved toward the exit. Where are you going? Vex asked. Home, Commander. Our work here is complete. The field test was successful, and we've gathered all the data we need. What about me? What about you? You're free to go, of course. Return to your superiors. File your report. Tell them everything you've seen here today. The TRX units were filing out of the chamber in an orderly procession, leaving Vex alone with his thoughts and his fears. Commander, Wright's voice called out as the last unit reached the exit. One final piece of advice. What? The next time humanity offers to share technology with the galactic community, perhaps you should listen more carefully to what we're actually offering. And then they were gone, leaving Vex standing alone in the computer core chamber of a research station that had just been thoroughly and completely compromised by technology he was only beginning to understand. He activated his communicator and contacted Dr. Kresh. Doctor, what's the status of our research data? Gone, Commander. Everything. 40 years of accumulated research completely wiped from our systems. But what? But they left something behind. Technical specifications for their TRX units, complete manufacturing instructions, design principles, operational protocols, everything we've been trying to discover for months. Vex closed his eyes and tried to process what that meant. The humans had stolen all of their research, then given them the answers they had been looking for. Doctor, prepare a full report for the High Command. Include everything that happened here today. Every detail. Every conversation, every demonstration. Yes, sir. What should I tell them about our recommendations? Vex looked around the empty computer core chamber, thinking about 3 Zephyrian warships that were now more capable than when they had arrived, thinking about technology that improved other technology, thinking about a species that preferred integration to conquest. Tell them, he said slowly, that we need to reconsider our approach to human Zephyrian relations, and tell them to do it quickly, before they decide to demonstrate their diplomatic capabilities on a larger scale. He made his way toward the exit, his mind already composing the report that would change the balance of power in the galaxy. Behind him, the computer core hummed quietly, now running on hybrid human Zephyrian technology that was approximately 4 times more efficient than its original design. The humans had kept their promise. They had shared their technology. They had just done it on their own terms.